Welcome to the Inspired Riding Audio Summit. We're talking about the benefits of intuition in the horse world. I have with me today two amazing, beautiful souls. They are Neil and Paul from Tayledras Grove. Having been together for 12 years, they decided a change was required, so they left the city, left their careers, and started on a journey of self-discovery and finding love and balance within their herd. Now, 8 years later, they are working hard towards their dreams. They provide quality galloway horses of the hunter type. They take time for developing their off-grid property and find joy every day in what they do. Neil and Paul, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much, Beth. It's good to see you too.
Well, I'm so glad you guys are here, and let's get right into the questions. What do you love most about working with horses?
There's a few different things. I think one of the biggest things would have to be the bond you actually have with horses. They're an animal that is so they use their expression a lot. Just like humans, they use both sides of their brain. They understand fear, they understand joy, they understand love, they're curious, they can memorize.
They get humour.
They get humour. You know, they do so many different things that we ourselves do, and even our dogs do, that it's like having a big herd of dogs, really, very big dogs, but it's part of being able to spend your time with them and actually be able to enjoy the time as well. We don't always take that into consideration with our everyday lives, and horses can always bring you back to that.
That's so true.
Yeah. It's fun, frustrating and stressful and all the things that it should be, but it's also that connection. We strive for it in our everyday lives. It's why we left the city. It's why we turned our backs on promising careers, in quotes, because were they that promising if we're here 8 years later?
Is anyone that's got horses not something you get into, like picking up a book, you can put it down easily and move on. Having a horse is a very different thing. You've got to be drawn to the animal in the first place to even commit to what they need. You know, they're not like a dog or a cat where you can have them in a normal house and keep them inside, them around and that sort of stuff. It's, it takes a very specific type of person to be drawn to them. But that said, anyone that has the interactions can then have that will to just come back.
They teach us so much about ourselves, don't they?
Yeah, they open your eyes. Sometimes you don't realize how happy you are or frustrated or sad, but they can reflect it, but they're not reflecting it in a way that they come back at you with that. They give you love. They give you joy. They tell you their capacity for forgiving. And I think for humans, that's something that we all need to remember in our everyday lives, is to forgive ourselves and to keep trying.
Ooh, I got chills from that. That's awesome.
Cool.
So what's something a horse has taught you that's changed your perspective?
For me personally, I think when I first started with horses, I was taught in the old style. You are taught that the horse is there to do a job, and when you demand their time, they're supposed to give it. And I think what I've learned after a few years off in the city and coming back to it is it's not that simple. We can't just demand our time from them. We can't just demand their time. It's something with an animal that is given, and because of their ability to enjoy or to love, to get that connection coming back to you is a phenomenal thing.
To add on and kind of explain it differently, having a horse and interacting with them is almost like psychic customer service. You know, it's a really horrible analogy because it puts it into a work perspective, but when you're customer service, you've got to be smiley, you've got to be presenting that thing, and the horses see through your bullshit. So there's that psychic level that, you know, you can put that face on for everyday life, but the horse sees through it. So if you're not there psychically, they know. You know, they keep your shit together. Pardon my language, but, you know, they keep you real.
Can you dive into a little bit more about what you mean by psychically?
They have their own intuition with people and other animals, and they have their own connections, especially with, you know, some humans and stuff. And they, you know, whether you pick up on images or words or feelings, you know, but I feel that they can smell fear and different pheromones. So there's a certain amount of psychic stuff as well that they can definitely understand. You know, if you go out and visualize something happening, whether it's just trying to keep them calm and figuring out what works for them psychically, what image helps them, you know, it's communication with them on just a different level. And that's where the customer service is that they, you know, you've got to be switched on. You've actually got to want to be there for them to have that relationship. So that's where it puts you in a focused place where you are focused on them and the communication with them and nothing else.
We both spent about 10 years each in call centres up in the city, and for a lot of it within banking or insurance. So sometimes the only reason you get phone calls is because people are in a bad place. And part of our jobs, especially coming into senior management and stuff, was to learn how to delve into things quickly, but also to control how we react, control how we interact with those people. It's our tones, it's our mannerisms that can actually turn someone's perspective around, and it's the same with horses as well.
Yeah, that communication level that we bring to it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective, is just reminding yourself to be so self-aware and understanding what you're offering when you're around your horses. I love that. And to really just focus on the aspect of allowing them to give to you instead of demanding their time. That's huge.
Yeah, it's not always easy, especially with a more traditional background, but it's especially breeding like we do. We're getting these newborn bundles that have only instinct that they're working with, and we can't teach them fear. We can't teach them to be afraid of us or to be scared of the next person to come along, because we want them to go to homes where they will be the human's most trusted companion. And when we are giving them so much, we can't demand. So it's a process, and each day you sort of have to sit back and listen and go, well, hang on, maybe while things are happening and we can't give them all the time, they're still there for us. And that's a very powerful thing to realise, that someone is always there for you. It's amazing.
That is such a beautiful feeling, for sure.
Yeah.
So let's dive into more of the intuition. How has your intuition helped you when interacting with horses or with people?
A few of our herd has actually come to us through just photos. So one mare that we purchased, all we saw was a photo of her eye. And I very much questioned Paul on it and said, why?
Let's be real. You've questioned me on a lot of things. And gut instinct with it all, and I've seen images and I've just connected straight away. So this one was of a not even a whole eye, just a half eye, and I knew from that image. And I mean, she was only with us for a little while, and then we had to move her along to another family, but we trusted that intuition in that process of where the right home for her to be was as well, and It's been amazing. She's gone to a beautiful family who brought her back into an eventing career, and she's had a couple of foals with them, and she adores the kids. It's been an absolutely beautiful process to see for her. And other horses have become the foundations of our stud. You know, like there's very unique connections with some of these guys that it is pretty amazing to come from very simple, basic photos, you know, taken on old school phones and stuff like that. And, when we've gone with what's right to join us and our herd, I can look at a photo and say yes or no. But every time I'm looking for financial gain, it doesn't come through and things don't work. But when we're looking for what's right for us and our animals, it clicks, and that bond is there just through a still frame.
We've even had one mare join us. When we first saw her, the condition wasn't great. And it was quite late at night. We just managed to get there at about 10 o'clock. And I looked at Paul and I said, what the hell are we doing?
This is a horse that was passed over, I think, 2 or 3 times at the auctions with a foal at foot. And that was, you know, slaughterhouses rejecting her. So that gives you an idea of the condition that a horse would be in, and she had a foal at foot.
And I turned to Paul and I just looked at him. He goes, just get her on the float. That was it. And all the way home, I looked at him and I'm like, what the hell are we doing? This is our second mare to join the stud. And yet, I mean, with all my experience, I just couldn't see past
everyone else had seen.
The dejection, the absolute, she was scared. They were both so uncertain and fearful of the trauma that they'd been through, and
she was clearly the bottom of the herd as well. So that, you know, she's coming from a few different traumas in that way.
And she's one of our favourites.
She is our matriarch. She's 20 years old, and hopefully in foal again. She's hanging out next to the father in the shelters at the moment, so she's having a great time, but she should already be a couple of months along, with potentially her last bubba for us, and she just loves the process and her babies, but she hits a point with her foals where she says, no, they're old enough to leave me alone now, and she tells you, take them away.
So intuition for us comes in a lot of different forms. It's how we manage the stud. It's the people we accept to come and view the horses. It's how we feed them.
Well, look, even with this horse we're talking about, Mia, I know the sound of her wickers and her calls. I was there for her last foal being born because I heard a call out and knew something wasn't right. So I went out and she was down and actually was there. I've got the whole birth on film and everything, and I was there for Bubba, helping him get out of the sack and, you know, every step of that process. But I knew what was going on from the sound of her, and then all of our herd do an amazing thing when a new foal's coming or come. They call out a hello. And you know, if you've slept through that call out, you've missed it.
Yeah.
So you trust that intuition to get up and get out there and be a part of the herd process in that.
That's absolutely gorgeous. I'd love to know more details about your intuition. So do you get like a feeling in your body somewhere? Do you see it? Do you hear it? Do you smell it? Or is it a combination?
Yes. It's all of everything.
Well, it's like when you know rain's coming. You can see the clouds, you can smell the petrichor, you can feel the atmosphere. It's everything. When someone walks into a room, you can feel the presence, you can feel the change in temperature and all that, and the noise that goes with them. It's the same with picking up that feeling from the animals, and it can mean different things of what's happening.
We've even used our intuition to sound out humans for our horses. It's not about the horses for the humans, it's the other way around for us. the connection, creating that companionship like we see with you and Pepper, creating that is incredibly special. And there's been a few we've looked at each other and we've said when they were young, we would love this horse to go to this person. And that's where they are. And I don't know where it comes from, but something at the back of both of our minds, I believe, come in and says, this is it. This is right. This is that clarion call you can hear in your head where angels sing or something, however you want to say it.
Well, I guess with the chosen of the Tayledras that we named the stud after, when a companion finds their rider, they hear chimes. It's like that bell tone that clicks, that communication forms, and different riders perceive that in different ways. Some perceive it as being able to see through their eyes or hear their thoughts or pick up the smell of the rain and stuff like I was talking about. So for every rider, there's a different way of communicating with our horse depending on how they perceive the world. And I guess we see that with the animals when they find the right person that is their home, that it's not always the human we're looking at when someone's out here to assess our horses. It's how our guys respond to them.
What a gorgeous way to be. And imagine if everyone in the world did that with their horses, it would be so much happier.
I think so. And I guess it's all we could really hope for, isn't it? It's about finding for us that connection. And we keep coming back to calling them companions, but they are. We trust them with everything in ourselves to carry us, to stand next to us and not jump on us.
I guess you drive a car, you have to wear a seatbelt, you've got airbags, you've got all these safety things. You ride a horse, you've got to have trust in that animal. That's a very big difference in safety requirements with these things. You still have a certain amount of trust in a car, but the trust you have to have in a horse is very different.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for explaining that. I really love your perspective, you guys.
Thank you.
So has your intuition ever surprised you in life? And if so, can you share a story about that?
Cinder.
Yeah.
Look, we've been adamant over 20 years that we would never, ever get a miniature horse. We would never do it. We cannot stand these beasts.
And just real quick, they're adorable. They're so cute.
They're also monsters.
They're terrors. They're absolute freaking terrors.
We've been so adamant that we would never, ever, ever, ever go near a miniature horse. And we moved here. And, I mean, we had a back lawn that was always growing. I just, goats would be great, but that's another livestock that I have to learn, and I know horses. And we met this miniature horse, and from the instant we met her, she was only about a year old, and she'd come up to us, and they've been unhandled, they're feral little monsters, and but she would come up and follow around and get pats, and I would go see her at least once a week. And then we spoke to the owners, and they were more than happy for her to join our herd. So we kept building up that trust with her over 6 months. And then one day I'd been peddling away. Neil had helped a little bit to build a special little stable for her off our veranda. So that's the veranda we hang out on with the birds and go out at night time. So it's a special little mini stable that opens onto that and out into our own little paddock to mow our back lawn. And that she wasn't, lead trained or anything, but she trusted me enough. We got the halter on her and got her onto the float. And
which was an experience. It was Paul walking her as she ran in front of him at 100 miles an hour, and me just sort of pushing from behind every time she stopped. And she'd never seen a float. She'd never, I think, seen a halter or lead rope. And the first thing she did when the lead rope went on was go, oh, my God, rear up and fell over. And we thought, oh, Lord, what have we done? Please don't hurt yourself.
But we got her home, we have. And, I went for a ride in the float with her. It was only back roads, basically a driveway apart. So she wasn't going to cope in there on her own. So we got her home, got her into the backyard, showed her a stable, and how long has she been with us now? A year? Not quite.
In August it will be a year.
She now comes into the veranda with us and hangs out and gets scritches, and when I let her out in the morning, she demands a cuddle, which literally means bending yourself in half and wrapping your arms around her belly, and then she wraps her head around your legs.
We can do her feet, we can catch her, she wears a fly veil now. From this little terror.
We didn't realise what she would do for us on a personal level, especially being out there at night time, and having a little horse hang out with you is quite soothing in a way. We both have anxiety and depression, and having her has actually been a healing experience, which, considering we never ever would get a miniature horse, and this little terror has become this beautiful blessing in our back veranda.
So, to give you a bit of an idea, a couple of years ago, I recently found out that I'd known I'd come off a client's horse. What I didn't know was that I'd broken my back. And I found that out at the beginning of last year. This happened in 2018, so what's that, 4 years difference? We've moved twice. I was riding. I had 5 cracked and broken vertebrae, and I was riding again within a week. And no one believed me apart from Paul that something had happened. My doctor basically said, look, we're not going to bother doing scans. Nothing feels wrong. Yeah. So I've got 5 broken vertebrae and a smashed tailbone. And coming into last year, when I found out, I had been doing work in a feed store, a job I thought I'd always love, and it was hurting me a lot, lifting and everything, and I found out I broke my back. It all started making sense, but I hated it, but I was angry, and I was frustrated with a lot of people for telling me that I was basically lying. And the other thing I found out was that I actually broke my back at 14. So this is the second time. Yes, both from horse riding accidents. But part of that frustration was I wasn't connecting with our horses as much as I could have. And then Cinder came, and being able to connect with her and find my own enjoyment back in it again has been a blessing in disguise.
There's something quite relaxing about being able to sit outside in a comfortable chair and have a horse happily chatting with you and giving you kisses and scratches where you're actually relaxed as well. There's something very different because you're giving them a different opportunity to come up to you on, she doesn't have a halter or lead rope on her. She's just wandering out on her own to have an explore and come see us and get some treats as well. But
the intuition, even though we didn't understand it, coming back to intuition, there was a reason, and there's always been a reason horses have joined us. Whether it's been for good or bad, we've always learnt. But
we both felt that we needed to join our herd, and
we joined her herd, which has been the most amazing thing as well.
I love that. It's like she gives you energetic hugs when you're around her, right?
Yeah. And even when we're not feeling the best, sometimes, you're not feeling the best, so you just walk past her and she'll just look at you and go, "Oi, bitch." And she'll run in front of me especially, and she'll do a little kick at my knee, and I'm like, "Oh, well, that was bad," because it's, so little off the ground. But then she'll come for a hug, and I realise that I haven't been giving her the attention she needed and I needed. So, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how they're like biofeedback for you.
Yeah. Yes, very much so. If we're in a bad mood, they'll tell us. If we're in a good mood, they'll love us. So
Now, I just have one question about that story. So you said you'd never get a mini, never get a mini. What was the turning point where you were like, we want to get her? Like, what happened?
We met her.
You met her? Oh. That's awesome.
That's pretty much it. We met her and we went home and I looked at Paul and I said, I fucking hate minis. I've been bitten and kicked by so many. Sorry, excuse the language.
Okay.
But I fucking hate minis and yet I wanted her. And yeah. We were very blessed to be able to take her home. It's because she's so little compared to everyone else, she isn't able to hang out with them like she was with her own family growing up. So we've become her scratching posts. We've become her love and joy. We've become that attention she was giving her family. We've become that. And there's healing in that.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that story. I think our listeners will really love it.
Thank you. She's a shithead, but we love her.
Oh, probably because she shows you what you need to know in the moment, right?
Exactly. Yes.
What lights you up and inspires you immensely in the horse world?
I think everything still comes back to that connection that you can look at a rider and a horse and see that there's more than just the reins and the leg communicating there. You can see it when someone is just, when you've seen someone go to a riding school and just jump on a random horse and go for a ride, you can see there's no connection. They're, for the most of them, they're just going through the process like you would on a carousel. There's no thought behind it. Whereas when you see a rider that has that connection and it is that form of communication, however they perceive it, you can see it. That is amazing, and that's all we could ever hope for with what we breed. But when you can see it out there and see it in other people, you know that you're not the only ones that think like that, and it's an amazing thing.
I got chills from that too.
It's hard work, but when you have such amazing people in today's society, going back, you would know this, going back 20, 30 years when I was a kid, the only way we could see horses, if you didn't have horses, was in magazines. And the only way to connect with these people was in magazines. You could read it, and I read everything religiously, but I guess in a big way, social media has really brought it all together in a way that we're able to follow people that were so influential for me growing up. We're friends with now. And you follow their journey and you go, oh my God, you're still human, but you've got to the very top of your game with humility. And I think one of the biggest things horses teach you, for the people who do find that true connection, is humility. When I was 21, I hit Grand Prix dressage. I was jumping 5 foot, I was doing all these things, and to everyone else on the outside, I was a stuck-up little shit. But to me on the inside, I was 21 and I hit Grand Prix dressage. I'd worked with my horses and we developed these bonds, and I got there, not with any help from outside, apart from instructors, but not with help from family or anything. It was all on me. I was the horsey weirdo, and that was fine.
With a lot of people, it's in perceptions, in that people might have seen you as stuck up, but the reality was you were so focused and dedicated to one thing and one thing only, which, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, you can easily put that single-minded focus. I mean, that's why they like people to study at that age. But if you're not drawn to that, you're drawn to something, and whatever it is, you learn, you amass that knowledge at that age, and you might seem stuck up, but you are single-mindedly pursuing the one thing that is clicking up here, in your head, that if you don't understand or get the opportunity to follow that at that age, it may never have the same potential of what you could achieve.
And I'm learning now at 41 that sometimes that potential isn't all it's cracked up to be either. I love to get, as it is, we're building so much around the property. The riding and training side for myself hasn't been a big focus for the last couple of years, and it's been difficult because as a teen with my crazy ADHD mind, my hyper focus was horses. It still is, but it's such a different way now, and maturity has given me a bit of that.
We're having to look at the long picture and the things that the horses need.
Yeah, rather than, I'd love to, I see stupidly sometimes horse riding, especially breeding and riding, are two very different hobbies. Very different hobbies. And yes, we're taking a bit of a slow down on the breeding, but we're looking now to what our hobbies can include, which is actually enjoying them a bit more. Our guys are a bit older that we've decided to keep. They're now looking at us going, hey, we want something to do. Come out with us. Let's go do something. Whereas when they're two, they're like 2-year-old kids. They've got no brain. They're all over the place. They look at this, it's shiny. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, whereas now they're coming into 4 or 5, 6. They're like, actually, let's go do something. And that's exciting.
We're feeling trust in these guys that we've raised from babies as well, that we're actually looking forward to getting out and doing stuff with them now that they're old enough. You know, it's just, we're still going to be having foals join us along the way. It's just not as heavy in the numbers. We're giving ourselves a few years of just enjoying the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. What's one piece of advice you would give your younger selves for encouragement?
Don't be so arrogant. It all does come crashing back on you sometimes. There's so many stories I could give to explain that, but I think we all understand a little bit of that. We all are, when we leave our teens, we are all arrogant. I was insanely good looking. I danced, I modelled. I mean, listen to me.
I guess my advice would be, don't rush, don't panic, think it through, which Neil still hasn't learned.
One thing we've developed is we always wear caps when we're working with the horses. And a cap, it's to get the sun out of your eyes, it's sunglasses, but sometimes you need to have a different perspective in mind. And what we can say to each other is turn your cap around. It's not necessarily a physical thing to put it on backwards.
It's good to actually physically switch your hat around and, you know, even if you don't have it on, to physically do the motion and switch that switch in your mind and try and think of it all from a different perspective. So we literally turn our hats around because we're wearing them at the time.
And now we don't need to turn our hats around. We've got it in our heads that we do it, but it's also...
It's a good way when you're getting frustrated with the situation to change, you know, the approach, and hopefully it works for the better.
I love that.
Just like humans, horses get frustrated and overwhelmed too. And for them, seeing us, I don't know if it's their intuition that we've tried to change our perspective with turning the hat around, but they seem to see that as well and go, oh, let's see where this can take us, and they start to change their attitude. Not their attitude, but their perspective and how they approach us as well. So we all try and work together that way.
I love that. And I guess you can almost imagine like if the cap had ears. So it was like pricking the ears forward, like attention, and then just letting them relax back down and go floppy. And that might be a cool way to think about it too.
Yeah. A friend of ours would do the mare stare. So if she was dealing with a horse that was being rude, she would thrust her jaw out and flare her nostrils and glare. And the way she does it is hilarious, but it made them pay attention and go, oh, they always are taught to listen to the matriarch. That's who, if there's a trouble ahead or behind them, the stallion stays to protect, but the mare takes them away from the danger. And she found that when she gave the horse a mare stare, they would pay attention most of the time. So we all have different ways of doing it, but there's ways where you can do it where it's funny and fun, and it just takes some of that angst and anxiety out of the situation.
I love that so much. Great advice, you guys.
Well, thank you. It's taken a lot of practice to get to this point.
You need to find something that you can say to each other without triggering each other, because then it escalates into a worse situation than it could be. So having a positive phrase that gets you thinking differently is pretty crucial.
I think it's brilliant. I'm glad you guys shared that. Thank you.
That's all right.
Okay, so here's a fun one. What does the phrase, "May the horse be with you always," mean to you?
The horses we have that we've bred or that we have accumulated or purchased over the time, they're actually with us all the time. I know that's quite literal, but one of our mares passed away a couple years ago, 3 months before we moved here. And she was our matriarch, and it destroyed both of us, but she's always there. The lessons she taught, the way she touched our lives, they're always there. And if we're able to take those lessons and impart them into other areas of our lives, either with friends or workplaces or family, where you can go, you know what? This isn't a great situation, but if I turn my hat around, maybe I can handle this a bit better. Or maybe I just need to fart in someone's face and walk away.
That's fantastic.
And Time, our stallion, is very good at doing that. When he's had enough, he will just fart in your face and walk away. And it's his way of turning his head around and walking away. So it's recognizing, in a way, like with horses, they're wild creatures that have a flight instinct. We as humans act like that as well a lot of the time. It's either flight or fight. And if we can understand that what they're going through, we can understand what a lot of other humans are going through as well. So, yeah, may the horse be with you. It's always at the back of the mind. They're just there.
Also triggers that psychic customer service, that if you can learn that lesson from the horses and you can put that into perspective with other animals or beings in your life, what you've learned from the horses translates into a whole nother language that you weren't aware of, that it just opens your eyes in other areas.
I was just going to bring it back to intuition again. The horses don't speak to us with words. We know they speak to us. You know that. We know that. But to the casual outsider, they would look at us and go, why is the horse behaving that way? And we go, oh, it's this. But that intuition takes us into every part of our lives. And with the horses, we have to learn to trust it. And we're not always taught to do that in today's society. We are not always taught to look at what our hearts are telling us. We are taught to look at things on the surface, and for many people, they never really go past that. But with horses, you have to.
We've both had such a connection with horses, and we've taken to know that we can't adjust them somewhere. We have to be where they are. There's no somewhere else, it's all or nothing in one big way. But because of that, we've been very blessed to be able to be aware of what goes on, so you can learn what they'll do at a particular time of day. You'll know the sound of their voice and what different tones mean. You'll understand what different stamping noises are. You get so tuned into it. We don't play a lot of music most of the time or listen to things because we listen to our horses. We've got a herd of them out there, let alone the kangaroos and birds and all sorts of things we've got around. Yeah, I adopted a wild roo. Just total segue here.
You adopted a wild roo? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, there's 3 now, but I was just outside one day and we've got a tree line behind us, amazing big old trees, and there was this kangaroo and had been watching me for days, and I was like, you want some company, don't you? She had a joey in her pouch, and I was like, all right. So I walked up to her and I crouched down and I fed her some grass and we started scratching each other. And then since then, she's come to me every day pretty much to get scratches, and I could put my hand in her pouch and pat her joey. So she'd come and get some grain from me when I feed the horses and stuff. And then I think a month or so after that, her baby got lost. We think it got taken by an eagle. But since then, she's pretty much lives permanently around the house. She's brought 2 new friends over that hang out around here, but she's definitely the boss. So she still gets scratches and patted everywhere, and I'll send you a video after this because she's absolutely adorable. She holds my hand and all sorts. I have a feeling that she was hand raised and then released, and she's just found home. And she's just not leaving, so that's fine with us.
That's amazing. Now, tell me, how do the horses respond to them?
They're generally fine. So it depends if they get in a paddock and if they're freaking out and they can't find their way out of the paddock. Well, of course, the horse is, if they're doing it for a while, the horse is going to get a bit annoyed. But for the main part, our horses just look at them and don't care. They'll hop through the paddocks. They'll drink from the water troughs, especially at feed times, because that's when we give her a snack and give her a pat. And yeah, they don't care.
That's amazing.
So they're so used to it over here. There's so many kangaroos. It's insane. We're just blessed not to be in an area where there's emus as well, because they're crazy.
Oh. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to share that I didn't ask?
Look, I think one thing for anyone looking at buying a horse or getting a horse that they should always remember and consider is that horse started out as someone else's dream, whether it was that generation or a couple of generations before or 100 generations before. That horse was someone's dream. So do the best you can by that horse, and that's all you can, all they can ask for.
I love that so much.
Something I think we all need to know, there's so much fear and uncertainty in the world at the moment. And one of the biggest things we can do, us horse riders, we're incredibly blessed to have animals that we can go out, give our time to, that can ground us, that can, like a cat, they can take our energy, they transmute it back to us in love or farts. But they give so much to us. And like Paul said, for us, it's a dream. It's a difficult dream. You build on constantly and consistently, and it takes a lot at this end.
I guess dream is a nice, pretty word for a lot of hard work and effort, and someone's had a vision, but there's been a lot of time and energy that's gone into actually creating that. And if anyone's had a dream that they've tried to bring into fruition, it's not peaceful sails and clear skies. It's a lot of work to make a dream come true, and that's what every horse is.
Totally. This has been awesome. And
Thank you.
Thank you
Been
guys
nice
so
chatting
much.
to
And
you.
I'll end our recording with what I always say is, may the horse be with you always.
May the horse be with you too.
Thank you.